Welcome, everybody, to System Admin Insights. So great to see you here as always. If this is your first session, feel free to drop your LinkedIn URL in chat so that everybody can connect with you. I always like to start off with some gratitude. So if you have something that you're grateful for today, either personally or professionally, I will say that I am grateful for the SAI workday call that we had earlier today. So one of the iCIMS SAI members showed up. She has iCIMS ATS. She's keeping the iCIMS ATS, but they're moving HCM to Workday. And so we had a great conversation about Workday implementation and best practice around that. This is our agenda for today. So we're going to share coming events, upcoming topics for our Free Friday calls, leaderboard, Dancing Parrot Award, secret candidate reminder, special presentation on, I know not everybody has time to do a secret candidate. So I'm going to show you how to fully automate participating in secret candidate, general discussion for member questions, mid-meeting announcements. We're going to talk about iForms Mastery, which is a course that we are releasing, and I have some questions for the community about the best way to approach participating in this course. So I have a little discussion about that. More general discussion, and then at the end, I'm going to do what we did last time, which is just a few minutes in breakout to touch base with one or two other people, and then we'll close it out. So that is the agenda for today. Vivian is grateful for gardening. Yeah. Natalie is grateful for meaningful recommendations from Vivian. That's awesome. Great. All right. So here are our coming events. We have office hours, and more office hours where you can meet in very small groups. One or two people usually come, and you can speak with the RD consulting team. And we have our themes here for the next few Free Friday calls, doing a special presentation on AI today, which I referenced earlier. Next week, we're going to be doing the secret candidate evaluation. I'm going to take all of the results from people who participated and give them back to Greg and discuss them as a group. On the 4th of April, we're going to be doing Now You Know with Vivian Larson again. Vivian's going to be talking about profile link fields. And on the 11th, we're going to do iCIMS reporting show and tell. So we've been thinking about show and tell and how to highlight community members who are doing interesting things. We're going to build this around reporting in iCIMS, dashboard reporting, metrics reporting, really getting you to a better place with how you're doing analytics, making it easier, more robust, and leveraging iCIMS' ability to really be fully customized to your business, right? We know it can do it. Sometimes it's not always clear how to get there, right? But so that's why we're going to be covering our top 10 reporting things that we look at with our consulting clients and do one of those each month. All right, here's our 7-day leaderboard. Cheryl gets a Dancing Parrot Award. Back on the 7-day leaderboard. Congratulations. Secret candidate again. I'll shout out to Amanda, Amy, Cordell, Jane Doe, whoever that may be. Very secret candidate, the secretest of candidates. Caitlin, thank you. Michael and Terry and Michelle, thank you everybody for participating so far. And yeah, now let's talk about secret candidates. Again, look, not everybody has time, right? Maybe you're busy, you really want to participate in secret candidate, but wouldn't it be great if we could just use the power of ChatGPT to automate this entire process? I'm, of course, being facetious, but I did want to share this with everybody because this is my first experiment with using ChatGPT's agentic AI solution, which is called Operator. It's $200 a month, which is a bummer. But, I was just thinking back to my first ChatGPT experience back in, I don't know, what was it, 2022 now? When I was like, this is so amazing. Obviously I'm going to pay $20 for this. I decided, you know what? This is probably so amazing that I'm going to be happy that I spent $200 for this. I did it so you don't have to. You get a certain number of operator credits with the regular ChatGPT account. So if you are on like a $20 a month plan with ChatGPT, no, I'm not getting paid to say this. This is just my experiments in the AI consumer ecosystem. The $20 plan gives you 10 credits for deep research, right? It does not give you the operator thing. right? Deep research is another one of those cherries on top, enhanced functionality with ChatGPT that I really like. I did a post on LinkedIn about the iCIMS boutique consulting landscape, and that was based on research that I did with ChatGPT's deep research functionality. But to get back to Secret Candidate, what you're going to see here is an extremely sped up version of ChatGPT autonomously applying for a job at NYU. And I'm going to pause it and give some call outs. This whole process took about 45 minutes from start to finish. And you will see that there were places where I had to intervene, right? It got confused by radio buttons that were highlighted in red on an iForm for some reason. Just all of the miraculous things that it can do can't handle a radio button highlighted in red. Who knows why? However, just like we were like making fun of AI and like how it hallucinates all the time back in 2022, and it's like, oh, it hallucinates, probably garbage, right? Similarly, this is the initial phase of this rolling out. And I think it is so important for all of us to just stay on top of this, be aware of what's possible so that we can anticipate use cases, but also anticipate risks. So without any further ado, here we go. So I said, apply for this job and give a full analysis of the candidate experience according to industry best practice. First of all, it totally failed at that. I gave it a document of like, here's our best practice for candidate experience and said, analyze it. They had no idea what I was talking about. So it pulls up this little browser window here. So again, I'm not clicking over here. I'm over here on the left-hand side chatting. I can intervene, right? I can take control at any time and stop it doing what it's doing, give it little hints on how to improve, right? The other thing I'll say is like, don't log into any websites here, right? Like I was very tempted, like, man, it's just if I could just give it access to something, like, no, absolutely not. OpenAI swears up and down that it's totally secure. This is my personal advice. Like, I really I want to see this go wrong before I take any risks with putting my logins and passwords into a browser that is completely owned and operated by OpenAI. So one thing that it did, well, I'll show this in a second. So it opened up, here's the job. It asked me if I want to proceed, said yes, clicked apply. Also, if you're wondering where you're getting all these spammy applicants, this is it. Oh, so that was interesting. That was interesting. Did you notice? What it's doing here is it's trying to make a burner email account, right? Since I wouldn't log into an email, it's saying, okay, I'll just make a fake one and use the fake email to apply. This is where we verify if something is a bot or not. And this to me is like the most crazy thing about this entire experiment. It passed it. The way these work is it's supposed to track your mouse activity, right? To get to, and it tracks your mouse activity because a computer will jump straight to the thing, click it. A human will use their hand to get there, right? It fooled it. That to me is very alarming. Okay, so here we go. Made the email.
This is doing it on its own?
Yes.
So you didn't copy and paste the email?
Nope. That was all autonomous, right? Now it wants a resume, right? And I realized I didn't have one to log in. I didn't have a fake resume that I wanted to drop in here. And so when I didn't give it a resume and it couldn't find one itself, it's trying to create one autonomously.
Wow, look at all these things opening. I saw Canva open.
Yep.
This is insanity. I
It
can't
is
believe
total
it.
insanity.
It's like behind the Oz curtain to
It
see
really
what
is.
it's doing to make it do what you asked it to do.
I told
It's
the RD
making
team
a resume.
it's
Oh
making a
my gosh.
resume. Uh-huh. Yeah. I told the RD team the other day I got about 3 hours of sleep. This is why. This is my I've been trying not to do this for a while because I knew I'd just become obsessed. But yeah, so this is kind of down a rabbit hole now because it's not going to be able to actually download the resume, I don't think. I'm not sure. So what I did is like while this was going, I made the fake resume, right? I put it in a PDF. It had to be a PDF. It wouldn't accept a doc. And then what it just did, there it is, right? So I told it, you accidentally closed the job listing. go back to NYU job portal because it was closing windows. Oh, here's Greg. All right, so everybody, we have to quickly backtrack one moment to catch Greg up on this. So, Greg, can you hear me? Greg? So, Greg, I have to quickly update you on what we're doing right now, okay?
Oh, sure, no problem.
This is ChatGPT operator autonomously applying for your secret candidate job.
That is awesome on so many levels. I can't even
Yeah.
tell you right now. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna let you do it. But wait, what's it called? Is that you actually built an operator that can do that?
I didn't build it. OpenAI built it, so I'm not going to take credit, but I paid for it. That's what I'll take credit for. I paid $200 to experiment
Oh,
with
you got the
operator.
pro version. Oh, I'm so jealous right now.
Yeah, exactly. So we started off with it created. So all I did was said, "Here's a link. Apply for this job." Right? It created a burner email account independently. It passed the "Are you human?" test independently. Right? And now I gave it a PDF resume. Okay, it's taking that resume. There we go. You said it'll take control thing. If I click that, it will stop and I can dive in here. All right. So Alexander Whimsy is in your ATS, Greg, if you are curious what this looks like on the back end. And it's going through and filling out all the profile fields. And these are aligned with the information that was in the resume since these fields didn't pre-populate when it parsed the resume, it is selecting the right fields.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I'm like blown away. I mean, that opens up so many cool things, both for testing and there's a little devil in me who's thinking all the crazy things that I could do if I didn't have a conscience. But that
Well,
is so wild. That is so cool though. At the same, is it only available in the pro version to do that, or is that something that has to be done?
the pro version is $20 a month, does not include this. The enhanced version,
Oh,
whatever
the
they call it,
enhanced.
is $200
So that
a
it
month.
can only be done in the enhanced version.
Yeah, so the pro version gives you some stuff that you can play with the higher tier stuff, but to get this stuff, you have to pay the $200.
I mean, this is I mean, one of the cool things about this is I'm managing from a candidate's perspective. If I'm having a job search and I can only apply to so many rows in one day, but if I can have ChatGPT or any tool help me apply faster to a role that puts me out there more. I mean, that's a competitive advantage as an applicant.
Yeah. And it's great. We need to be aware of what's possible, right? Both to think of positive use cases and also to anticipate risk. All right. Here it was very interesting. It couldn't find New York in the state dropdown because when the dropdown came down, New York was obscured, and then when it scrolled down, New York was again obscured at the top of the list. So I had to help it out a little bit. And here it gets really confused with picking the day of the month. I think it's the red highlighting that iForms do when you try to submit it without doing everything that's required. All right. I think it's the red that really tripped it up.
Ah,
Yeah. And so that's an interesting call out. Maybe this is a way to make it more difficult for bots to apply for your jobs.
yeah. Someone put in the chat simplifies Copilot. I was thinking the same thing. I think I ran into I set up a free account. I haven't played with it yet, but I actually just signed up for an account because I was looking for a friend who was actually having some tough time looking for work. Um, Robots don't like red. Yeah, I guess that would be wild. I mean, if that is something that just they have problems with, maybe that's like, okay, that's a nice built-in, way of making sure AI can't do that. But I feel like that's only temporary until someone
Right.
finds a workaround.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are any tells that you can use to figure out that something was written by AI, specifically like this. Like if there's a marker that it inserts.
And what's funny about
Mm.
I know for cover letters, one of the hallmarks of recruiters were telling me, besides people using the exact same cover letter and just template, was it was hard they were telling me that it actually, that yes, they use screeners, like someone put in the chat. They actually intentionally put screeners questions in there, but they actually the cover letter look is too good. That's the way they describe it to me. It was
Yeah.
too good. Like it was like almost like press ready. Like it was just again, it wasn't really human. It was just too good. And I'm not saying a person can't do a really good cover letter and just copy and paste it and just tweak it, but that was what some of the anecdotal stuff I've gotten from recruiters. It would be cool. I've heard rumors that but all the AI companies are coming with ways in response to either lawsuits
Yeah.
or to prepare to mitigate that, some type of fingerprinting or a way to be able to differentiate. But I'm going to go back to kind of, I think, a conversation we had about a month and a half ago where we were talking about academia. Academia was doing that, and the students started figuring ways out around
Of course.
how to remove the so-called fingerprint so they could use it in class. And I'm not going to, I won't tell people how to do that step by step, but I'll just say it's a lot easier than people think.
So one theory I've heard is that this is where blockchain is going to come into play. So watermarking things on the blockchain in a trustless way will be the thing that can authenticate the veracity of an image, of a video, of something like this, right? Everything will have its own blockchain watermark that will signify its authenticity. That's one theory. All right, so watch it generate a fake cover letter. Speaking of cover letters.
Alex, you got me thinking I may have to maybe use my credit card 1 or 2 times for the next couple months just to cash this. I mean, it's I just like I'm like really envious right now. Like, oh, I got to do this.
I had so much fun. I really did. I was really super excited to share with everybody.
This is so cool.
So I just want to call out Jess Smith in the chat says that the screening questions were a tell for her. When you're
Yeah.
using something like Simplify, the actual candidate answers the screening questions. So it's all it does is it fills in all the common questions like, are you over the age of 18? And like that kind of stuff. But if it's a unique question for each one of them, Simplify and a couple of others like jobbright.io actually do that as well, where they make the person answer the questions. So
Yeah, or you might need to have some sort of like silly question or something that is like appealing to I don't know, like some kind of question that would more likely result in an answer that would make sense human to human. I don't know what that would be, right?
How are bots in answering questions that have to do on the fly questions having to do with math, like right there as a screening question?
Mm-hmm.
just be careful with that though. So fun little side story. I had a client a long time ago that wanted to do developer hiring, and so they developed an iForm, and they wanted their candidates to insert a code snippet into a text box on the iForm to be able to tell, can they code? What does this look like? And the form specifically stops you from doing it because it's an insertion point for malware. So iForms
Right.
won't let you insert that. And there's actually a couple of places throughout, wherever there's a text box or an HTML editor box within portals that do the same. They won't let you. Math can be close enough to coding that it may not let you do it.
Like if
So
but
if you
what
have
if
a word problem and then you have a text box where they're just
yeah.
going to insert the answer, that might work.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's what I was thinking of. Like if someone really needed, like if it was a job or something where you were kind of really worried about AI being used. But I'm wondering how smart the bot is in terms of it being able to read the question. Because I know in the last year they've gotten pretty good with reasoning with problem solving, but I've never tried it in like obviously in this kind of in this scenario. So that would be an
I
interesting.
think it can definitely do it because a friend of mine had their 13-year-old insert their algebra homework into ChatGPT and it did it all perfectly.
Well, I'm not going to say who, but I'll just say that I know that ChatGPT can do uh, business level finance math. Because I've heard people who've used it for homework assistance or case study stuff. So, I'm not going to rat anybody out, but and it does it pretty well within a couple decimal points.
Mm. Well, so there we go. It
Awesome.
logged. I asked it to go to the portal to view the job. And the next thing that I did that I'm not going to show is I tried to get it to actually analyze the candidate experience based on a best practices document. couldn't do that, right? But I would say as far as how hands off this was, it was about 95% hands off. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
All right. Well, if you don't want to farm this out to AI, I encourage you
That's
to.
kind of a good thing that it couldn't analyze it, because if it
Yeah.
could analyze it, that would be a tell that it's saving the information that it's doing, right?
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. So please jump on this before Monday if you would like to do a human analysis of Greg's job at NYU. The link to the job is right here, and then the link to the feedback form is right there. All right. Thanks, everybody. With that, let's jump over to our discussion questions. All right. Live call questions. Alina, are you on the call?
Hi, yes. So, can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So my question is related to Evergreen requisitions. So current state, there's no limit on what recruiters are putting into the system, but we really want to be able to put a cap or put some sort of approval process in place that won't mess with the already determined requisition approvals. We could add like a HR compliance to every single approval, but not every single requisition needs to be approved. This is just for Evergreen requisitions, where the compliance team needs to be able to have insight and awareness before the rec gets posted. And so I guess I was just wondering if anyone had any insight or thought regarding this. I know a lot of organizations are fine with Evergreen recs and, allow their recruiters to post, but we want to kind of limit that. So just wanted to see if anyone else has this type of issue or how they kind of combat this.
So I can only say that I've seen this done. Evergreen recs themselves very often are outside of the normal approval chain. So more often than not, the person that approves them is the recruiter or the recruiting talent acquisition leader or the manager on the team. It doesn't have to go up the chain to all of the different approvals. And then the rec that they are hired to, the actual button seat rec, because the best practice for evergreens is to source in the evergreen rec and hire in a separate requisition. That's where the actual approval path for the headcount position resides. So it's usually
Interesting. So
yeah.
so what you're saying is create a requisition, get it approved through talent HR, and then create a separate one for actually hiring?
Correct. Yeah. And the reason for that is a lot of the integrations don't like evergreen recs for the sake of hiring, because evergreen recs won't have all of the nuances of data needed to
It's
hire
all
them from the ATS to the HCM. You're going to be missing your position codes. You're going to not have some of the appropriate levels that might, so you might hire somebody for one level in one rec and put them in another level in another rec, and they all came from the same evergreen rec. So you manage that data discrepancy by pushing the person from the evergreen rec into their hiring rec, and all of the data in the hiring rec that ultimately gets sent through the hiring process to your HRIS through the integration is right.
okay. So I guess how do we, like, if we were to go that route, so how does it, I guess, create more work for the recruiter or less? Or like, I guess how would we stop them from posting, I guess, that approval rec versus the creation, like they would basically, once it's approved, let's say by compliance or whoever needs to approve it, is there like notification that goes to them that says now you can copy this rec and hire based off of it? Or
First off, you never post the hiring requisition. It's strictly for the intention of pushing the hired and finalist candidates through. So the only people you move into the hiring requisition are the interviewed candidates, the ones that are finalists for that specific requisition, and the person you ultimately hire. And the reason is tracking, because then you can track everyone who is individually interviewed for that particular headcount position, for that particular hiring manager, for everything else. This is a high volume trick I've seen used at retail organizations, at telecom companies. So to fully answer your question, there's a nuance that your organization will need to decide if you move forward with this practice. And that is, do you open the hiring requisition at the time you've identified the hired candidate, or do you open it at the time that you open the sourcing requisition? And there's no right or wrong. The only thing that really matters there is how you're calculating time to fill. If you're going to calculate time to fill off of the date the requisition opens, then in that case, your best practice is going to be open the hiring requisition at the time you open the sourcing requisition and move your candidate from A to B. If you don't care about that, then you open the hiring requisition when the finalists have been identified, and then you move the finalists into the hiring requisition and finish your process in the hiring requisition. And this is where it's interesting, because this topic came up on my office hours this Tuesday as well. This is where the transfer candidate activity autumn launch action status actually comes into play, is really useful, because you can source the candidate through the Evergreen requisition. You can move them through interview, you can move them through phone screen. And when you use that transfer candidate activity with the auto launch action, it copies the entire history of everything that was done with that candidate into the hiring requisition. So none of that is lost.
okay, so essentially you're saying we could just transfer those individuals once identified to the hiring rec. Basically have two requisitions. Data won't be lost. The only thing would matter would be time to fill, and this will allow this rec to basically, or the sourcing rec to stay open for however long. Okay, yeah, I definitely want to vet this out, I think, in more detail for sure, just because I mean we've only used like one rec, and they've just been, putting 10 plus, budgeted FTE, and that kind of causes some concern that no one's, able to like vet it before it gets posted. And so I think the thought was they wanted an approval process, but yeah, I think if there's a sourcing rec versus an actual hiring rec, that could resolve. I'm just trying to think, like, so the the real ask for this is, how do we limit the number of change items that would happen with this? And so essentially, Vivian, if I'm understanding, they basically would have to duplicate the requisition. They would have their separate approvals. Well, I guess how would that work then? So if the sourcing rec gets approved by compliance, or a team, for example, for having 20 budgeted FTE, where would we basically have them copy the requisition and then send it through their personal teams? Like, I guess another requisition, like the hiring requisition?
So this is a nuanced question. It really depends on your organization. I've seen it done a couple of different ways. How do your requisitions get into your system right now?
Oh, we have a feed from our HCM. So basically they type in the job code and then data will populate in the requisition. And then some of it is not filled out, so the recruiter will have to fill that out.
So the hiring requisitions would be created your normal way from
Mhm.
your HCM, because you're going to have a position code and all of the associated data that's coming from the HCM that it ultimately needs to consume to hire that person. So your
Mhm.
hiring requisitions, it sounds like from what you're describing, your best process would be to create the sourcing rec and the hiring recs at the same time.
Okay.
So I would create your hiring rec via your normal process, and then I would copy one of your hiring recs to create your sourcing rec in the ATS only, and
Okay.
then send that for approval to one of the leadership in your team, not through the entire comp process. So that way you've covered your bases in the sense that comp has approved everything necessary for the hiring requisition, which is ultimately what matters. And then the sourcing requisition, where you're doing all the actual work, where it's posted, that requisition ultimately has all of the close to correct data that's ultimately needed. And your recruiters can just figure out which requisition the headcount should go to. If there are nuances, like if you need to open a level 1 or a level 2 or something along those lines that need to be filled out, that data can be left empty in your hiring requisition until the hire, or it can be pre-populated and they can pick the appropriate hiring requisition based on the level of the candidate.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think where I'm kind of, I guess one point that I'm hanging up on is just if there's two requisitions, I guess how would we differentiate them for people? Like, could we just create a flag on the rec that says one's a sourcing and one's a hiring for this position? Or like,
Yeah, you
I'm
can
just,
create a drop-down field.
okay.
It can be done in a number of ways. I've seen people have an internal and an external title, and the internal title, it says do not post, sourcing rec only, or something along those lines. There's a couple. You just create a custom field to keep track of it.
Okay. Okay.
You're going to want to do that in order to be able to filter it out of your metrics anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's super helpful. Okay. I may have more questions, so um
I'm
I
always
will
available on office hours at 11 a.m. on Tuesdays. So if you have more
okay.
questions, you're welcome to come.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, sorry I was long-winded, everyone. Thank you so much for for
Uh,
being patient with me.
Not at all. That's what we're here for. All right. Ariel, you posted a question. Is Ariel on the call? Oh, I didn't do live call questions. There we go. Ariel, I think she just posted this, but maybe she had to drop. Okay. All right. Well, the floor is open. Who else has a question today?
Hi, this is Liam from Reyes Holdings.
Hey, Liam.
Hey, so I don't know if anyone else experienced this. This was about 11:30 or 11:20 a.m. Central Time, but there's the new UI changes that are coming to workflow and job profiles, and they went live on our platform for about 15 minutes unexpectedly and then switched back. So I'm not sure if that was us or if anyone else experienced that.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, fun kind of nightmare to have to and fire to put out, especially since we haven't announced it to our TA teams yet.
Meh. Anybody else experience that? I've seen some no's. Liam, you may have just been getting the
We're lucky. Yeah,
you're
we're the
lucky.
lucky ones.
Special treatment. Yeah. Oh, Julia. Julia, what company are you with, Julia? Mackenzie Health. Okay.
Okay, so it seems isolated enough. They reverted back after about 10, 15 minutes or whatever, but
Yeah.
we got a number of questions over Teams in that time. So
Yeah. Did you reach out to iCIMS?
I have a semi-drafted message to our TP at the moment, but we also have a call with our TP on Monday, so we're going to bring it up then.
Okay, got it. Well, Thanks for raising that. It's always good.
Sure.
It's always good to know that you're not the only one. That somebody else might
Yeah.
be interested too.
Yeah, at least one.
Yeah.
All right,
Great.
thanks.
Yep. No problem. Thanks for the question. I saw Ariel for a second there, and then
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I had to join late. I had another meeting.
okay, no problem. How you doing today?
Good. Nice to see
Perfect.
everyone.
Likewise. All right. So you have a question: tips for best practices on managing early career intern program engagement with CRM and within the ATS.
Yes.
Cool.
So, yeah, I was just wondering if there were any other customers here that manage a global internship program. So, our intern our intern team, they have a few of these concerns that they are wanting to be addressed, that they're saying are not meeting what their need currently with iCIMS, and then looking into implementing another product. And before, going down that path, we just wanted to make sure, to see, okay, can any of these things be addressed? And is it just that they aren't utilizing the tools to their fullest capabilities? And so I was just wondering if anybody had any best practices in terms of, managing. I think a couple of the main issues are that they have very specific processes. So we have one global workflow as far as the recruiting workflow goes, with a couple of steps that are custom to them, but not like a whole branch workflow like we used to have in Aperture. And so I think maybe that might be one part of the issue. Another one is that they have a very long time between when they're getting the offer and accepting it and then when they're starting, because it's like months in between. And so I think that um, they aren't able to like continuously keep engaging, and then that kind of leads to a lot of reneges. And then different things with analytics. And so I was just wondering, yeah, if anybody is managing those and what their best practices are, and maybe if it's an issue of maybe just upgrading from the CRM to the CXM, or anything like that.
Yeah, this is Greg from NYU. We haven't implemented a CXM just yet, but we got tons of demos and datas, and a couple of these pain points were the same pain points that our teams were concerned about. So engagement, example of engagement, with the CXM, you can of course track engagement, but there's an entire behind the scenes workflow that you can build out, and it can automatically, based on certain conditions, trigger emails, trigger text messaging if you've got that enabled. So it allows someone to kind of engage with people who might be more passive. So maybe, for example, an applicant started applying but then stopped, or an applicant reached out through one of your forms, express interest, but hasn't yet applied to a job in X period of days. There's an actual way you can actually behind the scenes build out those flows and do that. That's actually something that comes like built into CXM.
Right. Yeah, I remember that from the demos. It's like, yeah, you can do it based on like, what they click or if they open, and then you don't have to be manually doing a campaign every time, right?
Right.
Is there a way to utilize that? Because I think one of the issues that we have right now is that like CRM doesn't have the workflows, like the information from the ATS of like the workflows that the candidate's on. And so how do you manage that process like specific to that when they're accepted an offer on a rec, but now there's like a 5 month gap.
Yeah, they're pushing everyone to CXM because like everyone's putting in chat like that's what CXM does. It's like they're nudging everyone towards CXM because that's where they're investing all their really high end stuff, all their features, all their development is going in that direction.
Right. So yeah, I guess I don't know. In terms of them being,
Oh, sorry. iCIMS is pushing everyone to the new CXM.
yeah,
So that's where all those automated features are going to be. That's where so all of that is going there. So I remember when we would act when we were shopping around and we're like, well, do you have something that's like maybe not as robust, but maybe you could do A, B, and C instead? And then because right now we have Connect. That's what we have. That's the older version of the CX of CRM, right? And that's really basic. Doesn't have the workflows and have that. I mean, sure, you can express some interest, but there's no workflow built into it. And there's some, yeah, you could do social media connecting. Yes, but it's not anywhere as robust as the CXM product. And they just told us, like, if you want all those bells and whistles, you'd have to go to CXM. I mean, there are some tools out there for engaging individuals, and there are tools out there for doing like talent management outside of iCIMS, like to do some things, and you can connect them, integrate, but it's going to be a lot of extra work. The CXM does do a lot of that for you already, and along with the pipelining.
Got it.
And,
So this is for candidates that are.
And I'm not getting any compensation for saying that. So I promise I'm not going to get any kickback for that.
Yeah, and this is relevant to candidates in the pipelines, but also ones that are already on active workflows.
Yeah, if I have people, yeah, our example was, it's say you have someone in executive search, right? And they have not yet applied, but you're trying to engage them, or they applied a long time ago to position A, and they said, you know what, I'm not ready. I might go for position B. Maybe it's a silver medalist. They can do that. They can go ahead and you can engage with them. Yeah.
Awesome.
And
Thank you,
there's also some really cool stuff in the chat. So I would check out the chat. A lot of people have been adding some tips and great advice in the chat as well.
All right. Thank you so much for the question. All right. Now let's go over to our mid-meeting announcements. We have a member community and an online platform. If you're not in it already, I was showing it when I was pulling up the questions. It's called System Admin Insights, and it is a great place to connect with other iCIMS system administrators. I built this around the idea that this is a place for social sharing with technology that's purpose-built for social sharing, and it gives us the ability to connect in authentic ways that I just didn't see in the space, right? So a lot of folks are getting value from it. I hope you check it out. The next thing I want to talk about is iForms. Townsend, are you on the call? Yeah. Townsend, are you on the call? Hey, there he is. So I wanted to introduce everybody to Townsend again. Townsend was at iCIMS for quite a long time and was a super TSE. I mean, he is the authority on a broad range of subjects in iCIMS functionality. He actually trained many of the TSEs over there. iCIMS, and Vivian can vouch for that. The iCIMS current TSE strategy is focused on specialization. And so individual TSEs over there, they have your ticket is routed to a specialist. They have that niche specialization, but sometimes what may not be in their awareness is sort of across those silos of information. And so as I was talking to folks in the space and trying to get a sense of who would be the best person to partner with and providing some additional support, Townsend was referred to me and by several people. And as we've been working together over the past couple of months, working on this course, not only have I been impressed by the depth of his technical expertise, but he's also just really relaxing and fun to talk to, right? Which can just be, it's so helpful to talk through technical issues with somebody who is able to just, take it easy, systematically, methodically, and compassionately explain something. So basically what we did, iForms, you have the ability to customize iForms. You have to sign a waiver, right? And iCIMS will open up the ability for you to edit your own iForms. When I was talking to Townsend about what we should do a course on, that's why iForms popped into mind. Like Townsend has specific expertise in iForms as well, but also as companies are starting to sign this waiver and start to experiment with that, I think there's a lot that can go wrong And I think some folks may get a little frustrated and in over their head without some additional support. So, Townsend, is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And what is just to talk about iForms for a little bit, like what sort of customer do you think is really going to benefit the most from doing self-service iForms?
I feel like everyone would. You would have the ability to get things done a lot faster than if you were relying on iCIMS support.
Right.
Those SLAs, they're a bit longer than just like a regular support ticket.
Yeah.
So being able to do all of that yourself is huge.
Yeah.
Anytime you need like a simple edit done, it could take maybe 2 minutes instead of waiting a day or two.
Got it. Got it. And even if you're not interested in signing that waiver and doing self-service iForms, I think we've all had the experience of like the results that you get from help desk vary on the inputs that you give them, right? Just like AI, it's like more inputs. It's why we always record videos and send them to the TSEs so they can see us talking through issues and whatnot. Townsend, what sort of additional context? So aside from iForms, just generally speaking, like what sort of additional context can you give to folks in the community to help them get better results from their ticket submission?
That's a really big question.
I know, I just threw that to you, sorry.
Like you said, giving more information is always better. In my time with iCIMS, I kind of learned how to infer what people were asking for because we don't always, know what other people don't know. So just knowing what kinds of questions that support is going to ask, and just preemptively adding that detail into a ticket is really huge. Can
Yeah.
save days. Because not to, you know, put the support in a bad light or anything, but they will sometimes just send a question in order to satisfy the contract. Having a response on a case within 24 hours.
Mm.
And then they'll just wait until the next day. Even if you respond immediately, they will wait for the next day to kind of answer that question.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we hear customers challenges, and I'm always focused on solutions. All right, how can you help out? What I'm showing you here is the lock screen for the iForms Mastery course, and part of why I'm having this conversation with the community is like the most challenging thing about being a business owner is pricing, right? Like there's all sorts of value that we can find and create and put in into this community. But when it comes when it comes time to like figuring out how to price that and what is actually valuable in a way that folks I want folks to be excited to see an opportunity like this. And I'm not asking for a discussion about numbers right now. What I would really appreciate is if you would consider some of these things that we are building into the system and get back to me personally and let me know what you think. If there's something else that would be a more valuable presentation, right? Please let me know. But for right now, I'm just going to show you what we have in the system. So we've got Townsend. By the way, I can't change the size of these images on the lock screen. So we've got a giant picture of Townsend. And we've got what you'll learn in this course. And then we've got the first lesson right here. And this is podcast style, just like our member spotlights. It's a conversation. It's not like a talking head. It's not a lecture, right? I find like lecture style online training to be pretty challenging to pay attention to. I wanted this to be much more consistent with our brand of relationship, all right? We're doing a course with Vivian as well on data management, data hygiene. So you can watch this first lesson here. You can kind of get a sense for the feel of the course. And then there are a few options here. And again, the pricing on this is provisional. I did some research. Of course, I used ChatGPT as well to figure out what this might look like. And so we were thinking the course itself would be $100. That if you wanted access to a chat space to discuss the course with other students, and with Townsend himself. So Townsend would moderate that chat space. That would be an initial 100 plus 150 a month, right? So that's giving you direct access to folks who are talking about iForms, and Townsend's in there moderating that space, giving you answers and facilitating the conversation, right? And then the third thing, not to overwhelm, but we're, thinking about his expertise with TSCs across the board. We were thinking that there might be an opportunity to assist companies in working with the help desk, right? And that would be a separate space that Townsend would also moderate, where he could help you actually write the tickets, talk through issues that you're having, not just for iForms, right? But for anything, any help desk challenges that you're having, Townsend would be your ace in the hole, the guy you go to get resolutions as quickly as possible, right? He cannot internally escalate tickets, right? But he can help manage that relationship if that would be helpful to you. So I have said enough. If you think this is intriguing or interesting, if you have any questions, if you have thoughts about how we structured this, other ways that might be better that we haven't thought of, if you have thoughts on pricing, please let me know, and we'd really appreciate it. And I think if you do go for this, you're going to enjoy talking to Townsend as much as I do. All right. That is officially the longest advertisement I've ever done for an IRD service, but I think it's super exciting. And Townsend, I just want to say I'm grateful to you for experimenting. This is an experiment. And yeah, and talk to you soon, man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So with that said, we have 10 more minutes. I'd like to open the floor and see if there are any other questions today. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So Emily Choi, can you go off mute?
Yes, hello.
Great. Hi.
I'm Emily Choi with Kimley Horn. And I just wanted to kind of ask the group if they had any suggestions or best practices on how they automate payroll with iCIMS Offer Wizard. We have a lot of different fields and clauses, and we're just trying to understand, and we're struggling with trying to put, conditional fields in clauses, and if anybody has any best practices.
Define what you mean by automate.
Yeah, so right now we have we're going through, I guess, like growing pains in the sense of like we are like our payroll team essentially reads every single offer letter and like essentially like manually does the payroll, but we are getting to a point where we're hiring just too many people a year. It's not sustainable to have, one person read every single offer letter when somebody gets hired. And we're struggling because the system we had set up before with clauses aren't able to be like downloaded into an Excel file for it to be easily reportable. So I just was curious if anybody else had a better practice than just somebody manually reading an offer letter.
Hey, Emily. This is Ariel from Viasat. So I'm just wondering, is the only place where that information is being housed is in the clauses in the offer center? It's not like there's no other fields or anything that the information is being pulled from?
Yeah, it's a good question. Some of them we do have like fields in like in the workflow, in the field workflow form. But some of them, like the clauses are really intricate for some of our hires, and so we weren't able to get those into fields without the verbiage looking off in the offer letter wizard. So some yes, some no.
So I missed part of what you were describing because I got distracted for a second. But Vivian, you slacked me and you said that this might be a use case for like an embedded app to present information inside iCIMS. Is that?
Yeah, we were having a conversation with another client earlier this week about some of the cool things that you can do with embedding. And you just made me think about the first place my thought went when he was showing me this ROI calculator that we've built that we can embed into your iCIMS. And that is having he's showing it on the left-hand side there, This is an actual dashboard that you're looking at. My first thought when he showed me this was this would solve a huge problem for a bunch of customers I've worked with about calculating pay based on grade and level. And if a company is willing to put in their grade and all of that into an AI, which is also a very big question, understandably, but you could build something along these lines to calculate all that. Now, that doesn't solve your clause problem. I think your clause problem is you need more templates.
Got it.
Because templates can be driven by the job itself, clauses cannot. So I think that you need more templates in order to make it more automated if that's ultimately your goal. If your goal is that you don't want your users to have to think, then having more templates and having those templates nuanced and attached to the job itself could save you some pain in this regard. Now, I understand if there's like COLA and like all of those fun things, that's not something you can insert at a template level. That's the reason clauses were made in the first place. The best answer that I can have for you in regards to automating them is have more templates. But as far as the formatting issue, last week I showed a paste as text as an option within an HTML editor field. It's the same problem in Offer Center. If you're having formatting issues where it's a different font or it's a different font size or that kind of thing, that's because you need to paste as text when you're creating both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I've heard a couple of different things in what you're trying to solve here. I think ultimately I would start in analyzing the solution to this with what data do you get from your HRIS when you create your requisition, and how can you use that data to intuitively select a template that has more of what you ultimately need for that type of hire.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the question. All right, so we're going to do breakout room social time for about 4 minutes so you can say hello. Each room will have 2 or 3 people in it if you need to drop. Thank you so much for joining today. But if you'd like to hang out with one of your peers for a couple minutes here, we'll come back and say a formal goodbye at the end of that. All right, opening the rooms now. All right, so I hope everybody got to connect. And thank you, as always, for being a part of this community. I hope you have a restful and restorative weekend with some self-care involved. And we'll see you next week for the NYU secret candidate presentation.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks, everybody.